All right, welcome to our webinar today, Winning the SEO Game for Schools, How to Dominate Organic Search and Get in Front of the Right Students in 2023. My name is David Kinnan. I am the Director of Business Development at Higher Education Marketing. In a moment, I will have the pleasure of passing you over to Philippe Taza, CEO of Higher Education Marketing, for today's webinar. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping details. If you have questions, please use the questions function in GoToWebinar. We'll be using the questions function for our Q&A as we go and at the end. If you have any comments, please use the chat function. And please note the session is being recorded. The slides and recording will be sent to you within 24 hours. Without further ado, I'll pass things over to Philippe Taza, CEO of Higher Education Marketing.
Thank you, David. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this webinar on winning the SEO game for schools. I'm quite passionate about SEO. I've been doing it now for, almost 2 decades. So it's a long time. I've just aged myself. SEO, one reason why I find it so amazing is that it's a channel that brings a lot of value to schools, but for some reason it's often overlooked. It's not a channel that's used as popular as others in the education or student recruitment mix. So today we want to kind of highlight why it's important. Try to explain so that you can understand more of the fundamentals of what SEO is and determine how search engines rank your content. We have some opportunities we want to show you in terms of visibility on search engine result pages, and we'll end the webinar with how to measure SEO. But like most webinars, we'd like to start with a quick poll and ask you if you have a documented SEO strategy. If you can please take a moment to respond to this poll. Do you have a documented SEO strategy? And the word documented is really important. I want to give you guys a few more moments to respond. Yeah, do you have a documented SEO strategy? Let me close the poll now and share the results. So 30% do and 70% don't, which supports my prior comment that my perception of utilization of SEO in the education sector is that it's underutilized, and the response we got in our earlier session this morning supports the response we got from you at this moment. So why is SEO important? First of all, SEO is much more than just keywords and meta tags and backlinks. Search engines exist to discover, understand, and organize the internet's content in order to offer the most relevant result to the questions searchers are asking. So there's a question of intent that speaks to in terms of SEO. Often, we have conversations, and it's in the paid advertising realm, and we compare paid social to paid search initiatives, and the intent is very different. So SEO is important because it provides answers to what users are actually and already looking for, unlike traditional advertising. So that's the intent part that I was referring to. It creates an opportunity to reach potential students throughout different stages of the enrollment funnel. So that's another key reason as to why SEO is important. It also helps to develop a bond of trust. There's a certain impression when you, as a user, look for content and you find a particular website, and you find that website over and over again in organic results. And especially when it comes to search features, which we'll discuss a bit later, you have a certain bond of trust that's established between you and that organization. And of course, the trust also builds credibility because it's not instant. You cannot rank a website instantly like you could when you put funds in Google Ads. Well, you'll have your ads show up at the top of Google almost immediately, whereas with SEO, it takes time and energy to build the authority. And that brings me to the next question, which is, how does Google work? So as a fundamental, you've got to look at SEO from both of the human users, UX, and the machine, which is the robot, Googlebot, and their experience of accessing your website and your content. So always bear that in mind, that you have different user groups that you're trying to serve through SEO. And there's 3 basic steps that Google uses to rank your website. Crawling, so the pages have to be available online. Then they're indexed through relevance, and then the authority ranks them, and that's where Google decides which page will it result for a particular keyword based on many factors. Now, in terms of the spiders, the crawling bit, these crawlers, so Googlebot follows links. So if you go back to the beginning of the web, when we know it, in the first search engines and the content, those first web pages, they were mostly links and text. And over time, we developed this multimedia, very interactive front-end interface that we see with many frameworks. But at the basis, at the essence, it's about crawlers crawling the web, following these links, reading these links, reading the content. If Google considers a page to be useful, it will then store it in its index. So we refer to the Google index a lot, but essentially it's the database of the content that's available online, and that index is ready to be served whenever someone searches for a relevant topic. It'll match the search intent with a page in its index to try to provide the most relevant experience, the best experience to that user. And in terms of ranking, there's this secret sauce, which I guess is part of why maybe Google or SEO is not as utilized as a marketing channel for student recruitment, because it is a bit unclear and mystical. But there's over 200 factors that Google uses to determine which web page should appear in the SERP. SERP stands for Search Engine Result Page, in order to provide the best experience to the user. So when you're doing SEO, you're trying to play with these factors so that you can influence how Google will think of your content and hopefully present it more frequently in a higher ranking to those users. Now, in terms of SEO ranking factors, what I wanted to do here is look at some sources, some third-party sources, to see how they perceive ranking factors to be and how do they rank in terms of importance. And you look at them here, there's 10, 12, 15 items per source, and they're not all in the same order. They're clearly the same ideas, but not ordered the same way, which also highlights to the subjectiveness to a certain degree of what are the key elements to be done to influence and to SEO your content. Now, what are some of the opportunities that exist to show up on Google? Well, there's a SERP features guide from SEMrush that I like. There are many more than 18, but these are the common ones. And as part of the survey question of documenting your SEO strategy, this relates to this point. If you want to be visible for these search features, it has to be planned. Now, you might get lucky and you might get some of them that happen without you planning them, and that's good. But as you get into the SEO world and you want to really invest resources to improve your visibility, improve your ranking, improve your authority as a brand, you'll want to obtain more of these types of search features. And that needs to be planned. You got to decide what page should be worked on to achieve that particular search feature result. And here are some examples to relate the list I showed you earlier. There's the featured snippet, which typically is at the top of the SERP, and it provides a lot more real estate to the user to see what the answer is to the question of that searcher. Then there are site links that are available in the content underneath the meta description. And one that we probably use a lot, all of us, is people also ask. I know when I'm doing a lot of research online, I drill down, open these accordions, read the sources, go to the web page, try to kind of understand. So you actually can work to achieve these kinds of search feature results for your own website, whether it's the places or if you have events. So that's where the documentation of your strategy and what you're trying to achieve is key, so you can see the evolution around where you currently are and where you will become in time. This is the tool you can use to test whether or not your web page does result this rich result for the user. So as you plan your work, you can actually test and see if your work is doing the right thing or not. If you're also using the Google Search Console tool, you can access that directly from there. I'm having some issues here. Okay, there we go. So how do you create an SEO strategy? So we saw there were many factors, and not every professional source agrees on the importance, but they all agree on the activities that should fall within the strategy. You should define keywords through research, and we actually have a process we'll showcase as to how you should do your research in terms of keywords. Then we suggest using content clusters, which we'll explain a bit later, to deploy your keywords and organizing your content to reach better rankings. Of course, you should write quality content that's aimed at answering questions from your personas and your users. You should try to provide a great user experience. Internal linking is so underutilized. Providing links from one page to another with the right anchor text is so useful to improve your rankings in your SEO. Then you have external link building. So that's other websites linking to you, whether it's from an association you're part of, or if you have an accreditation for a program or for your organization, maybe it's a governmental accreditation. All these are really great places where you can obtain links from. There's technical components to SEO. Of course, you got to look at mobile readiness and being friendly for mobile first, and the site's got to be accessible and secure. So your strategy has to encompass all of these things, and gradually as you work them, you'll see your needle improving in terms of your KPIs, which we'll touch later in the presentation. Well, here's a process. Here's a process to performing keyword research, which I feel begins with looking at your competitors. Look at your competitors, see what keywords they're using for their programs, for their courses, what titles are they using, what keywords are in the titles or in the headlines. Look at your competitors. They're a great source to get initial inspiration. Then you can use the Google Search Console. There's a great report that tells you instantly what keywords your domain is already ranking for. So it's not about improvements, it's about what's currently happening. So you can filter that list of keywords in Google Search Console and look at only non-branded keywords. Because if the keyword has the brand, well, it'll be a lot easier to rank, and clearly you'll rank on the first page, if not the first top 3 results, because it's less competitive. So non-branded is where you should look at first. Then you can look at opportunity gaps between your domain and your competitor's domain. SEMrush has got a great tool to achieve that you can use to start looking at opportunity gaps and untapped keywords. Then focus on defining high volume keywords that line up with your educational offering. Develop a keyword plan to optimize your site. You should look at your content. The Search Console will tell you what pages are ranking for what keyword at what position. So you can start building this intelligence and data and establish a plan to improve that visibility and start ranking for new keywords over time. And the last step of the process is to measure the progress. Obviously, you want to see how you're doing over time versus your competitors and see that your rankings are improving. The other concept here is what is search intent? Well, keywords now are organized in categories: informational, navigational, commercial, transactional, so that when you plan for the keyword, you actually are planning it for the right opportunity in the right moment in the enrollment funnel. And many keyword research tools will actually organize the keywords with this search intent. We grabbed a content piece from Yoast, but many other sources have documentation on search intent. And you'll see later there's a SEMrush report that highlights the search intent. So this is an important concept because not all keywords are equal. Some have a lot of volume, some bring intent that's really top of the funnel versus bottom of the funnel. And this is all part of the planning strategy, planning process of your SEO strategy. Short tail versus long tail. So if a keyword has a single word like school or schools, it'll be a lot more competitive, but will have a lot more volume versus a keyword that might have 4+ words in it, such as where to study culinary arts in Vancouver. But the intent's going to be different, and the quality towards the funnel that I was referring to earlier is also going to be very, very different. But in your planning, you should decide what are the keywords you want. It probably makes a lot of sense for many organizations in the sector to focus on 2 to 3 word phrases as the topical focus for each of the programs that you offer or courses, and then gradually work your content towards our longer tail phrases. So there's some synergy between these types of keywords and the search intent. Just some tools. I mean, I know we use here at the agency multiple tools at the same time to work a problem. We'll look at the rankings in SEMrush. We'll look at it in Search Console, maybe on Moz for another purpose, on a technical point. So we'll tackle the problem from multiple angles to see, because these tools are all similar, but they're complementary. So, and the Search Console one is free. And the Google Ads one, well, of course, you're running ads, so you're paying Google for that purpose, but they have a great keyword planning tool that you can use to look at volume and competition as well by region. Now, once your research is established, how do you deploy that research? Well, we suggest you organize your content around content clusters. And these clusters are designed to position your website as an authority for one or many subjects. build your content clusters around the various courses and programs your organization offers, and link with internal links. So essentially, your program page or pages would become your pillar page. And that pillar page, you're optimizing it for the keyword that has the most volume that you've decided. So in the example that I showed here, it would be most likely culinary school. In this example, that would be the pillar. And all around it would be subtopics that are related, and you're linking one to another with the right anchor text. And by doing so, you're increasing the keyword density and relationships between your pages. And Google loves those types of signals to determine whether or not your domain and your website and your web pages are an authority for a particular topic or subject. Now, why content clusters? Well, they create contextual links between pages. I think in the SEO strategy, I highlighted that internal links is a missed opportunity. It's a hidden marketing asset that you have if you deploy it. So these contextual links between pages, so important. It also improves the user experience. Think of it, you're reading a page and then you have other additional content you can access that's related to your research or reading. This will improve your topical authority in Google, will improve your organic search rankings, and as a result will drive traffic, qualified traffic and leads to your website. So what are three important elements of topic clusters? Well, there's a pillar page, subtopic pages, and internal links. That's really the principle of clusters and the three important elements. So here's a light example from a music school. So how to play ukulele had the most volume. So now we're putting into context. So it had 11,000 monthly searches. So we determined that keyword, we would optimize the course page around ukulele around that keyword. And then we had other content. We had 4 other pages, which we optimized for these other keywords that you're seeing in the circles. And all of those pages are interlinked to each other, providing a cluster. Now this one is small because it only has 5 pages. You can have clusters that have 10, 20, depends of the content library that you have to work with. And it's not only about new content. You can actually do what we consider here at HEM historical optimization. You can determine and work your existing content and optimize it to fit within a cluster, because you quite likely didn't plan your content in your website at the outset with clusters in mind. So you have to adapt what you have to fit this model. So you'll need to work your existing content and make some small modifications and determine page A, page B, and so forth, which keyword you should rank for, which one is a pillar, and which one is a subtopic page. So, and of course, you want to build new content to create opportunities to rank for new things, but you have at your disposal many websites in our sector are quite big. You have at your disposal already a lot of content you can work with to deploy these clusters. Okay, we're going to enter the last section of the webinar, which is how do you measure the SEO effort? And I want to just say, if you've got questions for me, I'm here. I'm at your disposal. Don't be shy to interrupt me. Just put them in the chat in the questions comments section, and we'll answer them on the fly. So how do you measure your SEO efforts? Well, we wanted to provide you 5 measurement dimensions because they all work. They're all complementary measurement dimensions that fit within how to measure SEO and your SEO strategy. So number 1, keyword rankings. Yeah, I think that one is obvious. We know that we want to rank and improve the rankings of keywords. Number two, you want to look at your organic traffic. Which pages are receiving organic traffic? How many users per month, per year, per day, per week are accessing your website from search engines organically? The bounce rate and engagement rate speak to quality. Do users spend time on your website and engage with your content? Click-through rate, we'll talk about that. And I have slides on all of these points. So these are the 5 dimensions. The last one is around the domain authority or rating, and it's a scale which is usually 0 to 100. So let's start with the keywords. In the Search Console, you can look at, for any particular date range, what is your average position, which is the orange here, that your keywords overall for the web. You can filter any kind of search result, video, web, and others. You can choose the period, you can choose the country, you can choose the location. You can play with these filters, and you can see for particular queries, that's the equivalent of the keywords for the Search Console, how many clicks, impressions, click-through rate, and position, that's the ranking you have for a particular keyword. So this is the tool that Google offers, which is free. You have to enable it, and it's quite easy to do. That gives you instantly access to data from Google's point of view on how is your website ranking. And if you're using Bing, well, Bing has something similar too. You can look at it by different dimensions. If international is part of your strategy, you can look at it by country and look at the aggregate position and value and clicks by market. You can look at pages, devices, so there's different dimensions you can access very, very easily through the Search Console that help you with keyword ranking. You also have the SEMrush report. I like this one particularly because beyond providing you rankings by keyword and to see if the position's improved or not, it also provides you the intent for that keyword, or intents in some cases, and also the search feature. If you're ranking for that search feature, or maybe you've got multiple features ranking or available for that keyword, and I'll tell you how many features exist and your competitors are ranking for them. So I find that you're getting a lot of data very quickly, and of course you can drill down. You can look at one particular keyword, it'll give you a preview. Now, SEMrush, great tool as to how to really collect data and see your keyword rankings evolve over time. Then in Google Analytics 4, and we did, we're using GA4 because next July, if you don't know, Universal Analytics will be sunsetted. So you'll need to set up your GA4 properties to measure your web activity. And like the UA report of channels, this traffic acquisition report highlights traffic by channel, and the organic channel is the first one here in this example. So we can know for a time period how many users, how many sessions, how many of those were engaged, how many conversions. So you can really measure the organic search channel and see what contribution it has towards your overall web visibility. If you've set it up in time, you can have comparison month over month, year over year. We set up this property over a year ago, so we can actually have year over year traffic data, but the conversions were set up later in time, which is why we're not seeing any conversions for November 21. But you can use the comparison tool like with Universal Analytics. Actually, the GA4 comparison tool is a lot richer, so a lot more features you can play with. You can compare month over month, and the sooner you set up your GA4 property, the sooner you can actually start looking at data comparison. Then this is the equivalent of the old landing page report. It's called Pages and Screens. It's in the engagement section. So here it's telling us that one of the blog posts of this school is getting the most landed organic traffic before the home page, which is number 2. So we can see how many users and views. And look, in most cases, organic search is number 1, number 2, or number 3 in terms of traffic to the websites that I look at. Why? Because it's an important channel, and it's one that needs to be really monitored very closely. And you can drill down in other metrics to see how much traffic a particular URL is getting. And this is complementary to the Search Console, which give you clicks, but they don't tell you in the Search Console how much time they spent on the page and do they see other pages. But the Search Console will tell you for this URL how many impressions you're getting. So they're really complementary. And the bounce rate and engagement time are other important KPIs that speak to quality. So the bounce rate and the engagement rate, they kind of play each other. They're the opposite of each other. And then the average or the engagement time is what the time on site used to be in Universal. And these metrics have an impact in terms of ranking and also of engagement with your users. So it's multifaceted in terms of its importance. There are many studies that show that your load speed and the bounce rate are correlated. So the longer it takes for a page to load, the higher the bounce rate. And this example of the BBC loses an additional 10% of users every time an extra second is taken to load its pages. So time on site, page speed, the faster they load, so important and directly related to bounce rate, but also to rankings. And here are some tips you can use to improve the bounce rate and the engagement time. You can add a video to your content. You can add images. Adding contextual links to your pages. We talked about that with the clusters. We talked about that internal linking helps SEO, but it also helps with your bounce rate, because if they land on a particular page and they see another piece of content that you have that's related and relevant, then they've gone to a second page. You can improve the readability by using headers or headlines and short paragraphs. I've even seen cases where some excerpts of paragraphs are highlighted in yellow or other colors just to kind of help the reader spend more time and read what's important on the page. And you should make sure that your content matches the search intent. So you can look at a keyword and what page they're landing on, and is that intent in the keyword, is that query being answered by the content they're consuming? Sometimes they're not. So there's some opportunities there for you to leverage that. Then the click-through rate, that's the division between clicks and impressions. And we're not talking about Google Ads here. It's really about organic visibility. You can see the average click-through rate for overall, and you can segment that by market, by page, as I'm showing you here, or by keyword actually. And you'll notice that the click-through rate is not the same. So you should work towards understanding what your click-through rate is by keyword, by page, because getting the ranking is one thing, but then you want to get the traffic. That's the actual end result. And once you have the traffic, you want them to complete the actions on the website that you intended them to do so when you built it. And there are many studies that show that higher rankings you have, the more percentage of the search volume you're going to obtain from the SERP. And the first position gets, in this example of Smart Insights, a third of the traffic, and then it goes down. So top 3 is really where it's important to work and be visible. And you can work to stand out in SERP by writing compelling meta titles and descriptions That's a strategy to try to improve the click-through rate and get more traffic. Now, the last dimension of measurement, domain authority or authority score. Many websites, or many tools, I should say, use a tool. Ahrefs uses the domain rating, Moz domain authority, SEMrush authority score, and it's a estimation of Google's PageRank score on a scale from 0 to 100. And the higher it is, the more authority you have. And you can have this authority at the domain level or by page. And usually the home page is where you've got the most authority, and it goes down as you scroll down to your website and other pages. And how do you obtain or influence this authority score? Well, backlinks from other websites to yours is usually, in quality websites, is one of the most important factors to improve this authority score. So how can you increase your authority score? Well, so acquiring high quality backlinks, I just mentioned that. Number two, the second point, that's one that's within our control. You can create link-worthy content, and then people will link to it automatically, naturally. And this will mean that organically you're going to be building new links over time. And you know, whether you're writing a news story or a blog post, or you've published an article or research, and you promote that, people will find it and will link to it. So that's really one that we would advocate as super important. Internal linking structure. I've been mentioning this over and over today. It's super. It's also easy because it's within your website, it's within your control, and that's going to have an impact on increasing your search traffic and visibility. And look, I wouldn't, if I wouldn't touch social search or social SEO, I wouldn't do this webinar justice. It's really a hot topic that I follow. People are talking about TikTok SEO and social SEO. So it's something that's emerging. And for some segments of the population, that's where they search more and more. And many studies have shown that there's some erosion happening from Google or Google Maps moving towards some of these social outlets to search for stuff. So stay tuned, because this is something we'll touch on throughout 2023 coming up. But it's a new and emerging trend as to how to SEO your social and your social content. So I wanted to finish the presentation with a quick poll, if you wouldn't mind telling us, how often does your team or yourself perform an SEO audit? Yeah, if you can please, and we're about at the end of the webinar, if you can provide us your input, how often you look at this, it will give us a sense of the SEO mindset that we have in today's presentation. So let me close the poll and share the results. Okay, so almost half weekly. Wow, this is very different than this morning. So if I'm good at math, it's 63% or so do it monthly or weekly. That's excellent, and about a third aren't sure. Well, for those of you that are interested, HM offers a free SEO or website assessment, and my colleagues and myself, Lara and Scott and others, are at your disposal if you want us to come have a look at your tools to assess how your SEO is performing and faring. We'd be honored. David, over to you.
All right, thank you very much, Philippe. If you have questions at this point, you can go ahead and put them in the questions function or the chat, and we'll take them and give them to Philippe. Philippe, I have one question to start us off. You talked about rich search results. So I think most people know that we need a key, title and keywords and meta description. That's the basics. But how do you rank? What do you have to do to rank for those rich results?
Yes. Okay. Well, you need to plan for it. You've got to determine what questions you want to have answered and which questions you want to be visible for in these results. And then once you know which, you've defined that, you would establish for which page you want to be found and which page are you trying to rank for that particular result. Then you've got to create the content, make sure the content's available on the web page, but also you have to actually include structured data. So you have to actually add some code to your page following the schema.org framework. You can do that through a plugin like Yoast, for instance. So you've got to add this content that's been staged in the web page, in the back end of the web page, so that it'll actually get parsed at the template level. And once it's parsed at the template level, the crawlers, that bot that I referred to, those spiders, will be able to read it, which is why that preview tool that I showed earlier is essential to make sure that you test that actually what you've done, you've planned the content, you've added the content to the page, you've added the structured data in the back end of the page, and actually it's being parsed correctly, following the right schema for the bots to find it. And you got to do that for each result and each page you want to be resulted for in terms of that search feature, David. So it's not
Whether
simple.
it's, yeah, I was going to say it's complex. It's complex. Whether it's your web content or your blog or your news, you have to go through that process.
Yeah, the hard part is starting. Because once you start, you may have some technical difficulties between your SEO plugin and your page builder, which your technical team will need to deal with. Once you've got a few, and the Google Search Console will tell you, it'll tell you that, oh, you're ranking for FAQ, or you're ranking for breadcrumbs, or you're ranking for job postings, or whichever. And then you can build on that and gain momentum.
All right, great, thank you. You talked about Google Analytics for GA4. Can you tell us what's happening with GA/UA and what do people need to know about GA4?
In July next year, Google has decided to sunset Universal Analytics, and that's the version we've been using for years. So this is not something I've decided. It's Google that's decided. They've decided to sunset the current and very popular Universal Analytics version of Google Analytics. So that means as of July next year, if you don't have a GA4 property enabled, you're going to stop collecting web data. So you've got to do it.
And that's something your team can help with, or if anyone has questions. Also, go ahead, request a free SEO website assessment if that's of interest to you. The slides and the recording will be sent out shortly. I want to thank everyone for being here. Thank you, Philip, for your insights. Have a great holiday season. Happy New Year and happy SEO.
Happy holiday, everyone. Be healthy, and thank you for your time. Thank you very much.